Hello my lovelies, my name is Stephanie and welcome back to, or if you're new here then welcome to my lovely YouTube channel, this very transsexual corner of the internet. And today's video, I mean it's currently literally the morning that this video is going out because to be honest, there was some news that came out last week in the United Kingdom which has made being a trans person even more difficult than it already was. And I wasn't planning on making a video. To be honest, I was planning on bed rotting and sitting with this. But today we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court ruling in the United Kingdom that has redefined what it means to be a woman. Okay, so as I said, I wasn't planning on putting anything out about this. I have really struggled with the decision that was made on April 16th, 2025 regarding the reclassification of what it means to be a woman in the 2010 Equalities Act here in the United Kingdom. But as a trans person with a platform, albeit a very small platform, although growing every day, thank you so much, it kind of felt like it was something I had to speak on. It was something that I had to reflect on. It was something that I had to voice my opinion on, because ultimately it is something that, you know, massively affects me and how I live my life, massively affects the people that watch this channel and how they live their lives. And so, yeah, I guess I wanted to disclaimer, you know, I am not a lawyer, so I don't know a huge amount about, you know, the legalities of the kind of court ruling and things like that. But also, you know, I'm just a person with an opinion who isn't usually very affected by these things. You know, my transition is over. I finished my transition 5 years ago. I linked, you know, videos above my head of kind of 5 years post-op. But, you know, being a trans person stays with you for the rest of your life. It is not something that is specifically contingent on transition. It's not something that's specifically reliant on where you are in terms of your physicalities, in terms of your body and things like that. And so for me personally, I guess just like ultimately talking about this today is just my initial reaction and my, I guess, concerns about what this means for me and what this means for the community that I am a part of. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, what are the facts? So on the 16th of April this year, the United Kingdom Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the United Kingdom, ruled on the definition of a woman within the Equalities Act and the kind of protections that go along with that characteristic. And essentially what has happened is a group of disgusting, immoral people took a plea to the court to redefine what it was to be a woman, what it meant to be a woman, and they have redefined it. They have seen fit to redefine it. As a woman refers to the biological sex assigned at birth. So only people who are assigned female at birth can be considered a woman, that sex and gender were the same thing under the Protected Equalities Act, and basically just completely invalidating every trans and gender expansive person. Well, I say every trans and gender expansive person, every trans femme person, because it doesn't affect trans men yet. It will, but it doesn't affect them yet because apparently we're the threat. And so as a trans woman, and obviously the implications of this and the kind of the practical implications of this are yet to be determined. This is brand new. It means that as a trans woman under the Equalities Act, I am no longer protected as a woman. I am considered to be a man, a male. And here's the thing, you know, on my channel, I've spoken about the fact before that I have never claimed to be biologically female. It is not something that's in the realms of possibilities for me. I don't think that I have jumped from one, set of chromosomes to the next. Everything has its own limitations. And yes, I have transitioned my sex in terms of my genitalia, my cross-sex hormones. I have more estrogen in my body than you probably do, or estrogen, as we say in the United Kingdom. And so, there are definitely limitations to certain things, but it means that under the Equalities Act, as a trans person, I am no longer a woman. I am now a man, which is wild, because I think to look at me, you would have to try very, very hard to assign masculine sex characteristics to myself. You would have to try very, very hard. And so I think, I think the thing that was so difficult about this ruling is these groups of women who had taken this to court and had basically allowed 3 middle-aged, white, disappointing men to completely redefine what it was to be a woman under the Equalities Act, because that's what happens. There you go, ladies, letting a man decide exactly what it means to be a woman. What a victory. They were outside of this court, like popping champagne, do you know what I mean? And celebrating and cheering, and trans people, we make up less than 1% of the population. According to a transactional survey completed in 2021 in the United Kingdom, trans people equate to something like 0.5%, like 1 in every 200 people. The idea of implementing legislation to specifically discriminate against one of the most marginalised communities that make up less than a percentile of the general UK population is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense anywhere. And I'm not trying to kind of take away from the fact that there need to be assigned female at birth only spaces, that different people have different parameters about things like that. But I hate to tell you this, you've already shared a bathroom with a trans person and nothing happened. You've already competed in sports with a trans person and nothing happened. You've already shared a table, at dinner. You've already been served by a server. You've already had a coffee from a barista that happens to be a trans or gender expansive person, and nothing happened. And I think the thing that is really baffling to me is that these people were celebrating discrimination, openly celebrating discrimination in the streets of London in 2025. And I was just there like, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. And so this weekend, on Saturday the 19th of April, I and thousands of other people went to demonstrations up and down the United Kingdom, up and down the UK, to talk about and to protest the fact that this was happening. I think in London there was like 10, 20,000 people, at this march at Parliament Square that was arranged in 2 days. And I think it just goes to show that these exclusionary feminists, these people who only want to exclude trans women from the idea of a protected feminine characteristic, they don't have the community to back them up in the same way that we do. It was a really moving experience to go and to see so many people actively protesting this decision that is going to affect me and people like me. And I think the other thing that is so amazing about the amount of community that showed up is we just took up space. We had been told that we were no longer valid. We had been told that under the Equalities Act, we would no longer seek protection. And I think that it just shows so well that our community and allies came and represented us and really defended our rights and our civil liberties. And you think of civil liberties and you think of things that happened 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. This is happening today. This is happening right now. Trans women are being discriminated against right now. Trans people are being marginalised every single day. And it's insane to me that we're still having these civil liberty discussions about whether or not trans women should be protected under the Equalities Act as women. I invested 15 years of my life into becoming who I am today. I deserve protections under the idea of what it means to be a woman. I have lived those experiences. You want to tell me that I don't know what it's like to be a woman? What, because I don't have female internal organs? I grew up as a girl. I transitioned at the age of 12. I grew up with the patriarchy. I grew up with sexism. I grew up with sexual misconduct and sexual assault. I grew up knowing the struggles of what it is to be a woman in society because I was discriminated against for becoming a woman. I had the opportunity to be the most privileged person by being a cisgendered white male, and it wasn't who I was, you know. And it baffles me that people think that this is something to celebrate. And the other thing, you know, the thing that is awful is, although some of the implications of this are not yet known, and we won't know the long-term implications of this for a long, long time, the British police force have already come out saying that under the new restrictions surrounding trans people, a male police officer can now complete a strip search on someone that they believe to be trans or that they believe to not have been born biologically female. Not only does this completely eradicate intersectionality, chromosomal disorders, you know, all of that shite, all of that really, really important stuff, it also means that any police officer, any male police officer, at any time, if they perceive someone to not fit into the realms of what femininity is to them in their lived experience, they have the right to strip search them. It is a recipe for disaster. This law hurts all women, including trans women, because trans women are women, whether you like it or not. This law will see trans men forced into women's bathrooms, trans men who are hypermask, facial hair, and what will happen is, because it will become indiscernible to people how to determine someone's, you know, sex assigned at birth, it means that men will now have more liberty to go into women's restrooms and pose as trans men and say, oh, well, I have to be in there. And you will see an increase in cisgendered men's assaults against women. It is baffling to me. I'm not going to go and use a men's room. So sorry, love. I'd rather be fucking arrested than go into a men's restroom. I'm not going in there. Not only would I steal your husband, he'd beat me the fuck up. Like, I'm not doing it. And I'm so sorry to those people who think that this law has any practical implications that can actually be measured or actually be enforced. Because if a male police officer came up to me and said he was going to strip search me, I would rather assault a police officer and go to jail. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's wrong. It's so wrong. It has so many potential implications for all women. It doesn't take away from the fact that I am a woman. I still am a woman, whether your law says something different or not. I don't know if the UK government has, you know, much general history on the LGBTQIA+ community. We historically don't really give a shit about whether or not our identities are legalised. I was a trans woman on April 15th. I was a trans woman on April 16th, and I am a trans woman right now. And every single one of those days, I was a real woman, regardless of what your law says, regardless of what the Equality Act protects. Trans women are not men. And I'm very sorry to this select group of women, and millions of others who are understandably scared of men, because this is what it boils down to. People are equating trans women to men. But let me tell you something. Men have never needed an excuse to abuse you. Men have never needed an excuse to discriminate against you. Men have never needed an excuse to go into your bathroom, to go into your home, to invade your space. It will still happen. Trans women are not to blame for the patriarchy. Trans women are not men. We will suffer at this law, but not as much as you will. We make up less than a percentile. This law will affect more cisgendered women than it will affect trans women. I don't know how else to spin it. I don't know how else you think this is going to positively affect women generally. Really sorry. Sorry that I wasn't born with, XX chromosomes and things like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is going to affect you more than it affects me. I'm a highly femme person. It is very difficult to come up to me in person and have me not fit within the parameters of what it means to be femme and feminine and female. So this only will discriminate. Again, it's baffling. It's baffling to me. And I know that this video kind of doesn't really have a point, and it's just my reflections on essentially something that is a baffling omission of logic in the judicial system. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about the fact that this is insane, that this makes no sense, that trans women are women every day, and we're not going anywhere. And to the thousands of people who showed up for my community around the United Kingdom, thank you so much. Thank you so much for showing that we actually do have the majority of support and not the minority of this incredibly discriminatory ruling. I guess it's just see where it goes from here. It is a very difficult time to be a trans person at the moment. It is a specifically very difficult time to be a trans woman at the moment. But I would like to, close this video out with saying that trans women are real women. I was a real woman on April 15th. I was a real woman on April 16th. And I am a real woman today and every day, regardless of these discriminatory laws. And to the individuals and the lawmakers who saw fit to define what a woman was, I have two words for you: generational turnover. Because one day you'll be dead. All you'll be remembered for is the discriminatory law you attempted to impose on marginalised community groups, and we'll still be women after you're gone. Thank you so much for watching today's very different video. I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope you're avoiding transphobia. I hope you know that if you're a trans woman, you're a real woman. I hope you know if you're a trans man, you're a real man. I hope you know if you're gender expansive, you do not owe anyone binary presentation or non-binary presentation. And I will see you next week for another video. Bye.